Welcome to the Joyful Mate podcast. Join your joyful journey mentor, Anthony Hartcher, as we explore the path to inner joy and fulfillment. Each episode, we dive into the science of happiness, share personal insights, and invite you to be part of this interactive book writing adventure. You'll hear from experts in the field of joy, happiness, and fulfillment who will share their wisdom and experiences. Let's embark on this journey together. Let's make happiness part of your everyday. Welcome on the Joyful Mate podcast. How are you, Amber?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought a guest along as well. Who's with you today?
This is my dog Porter. I'm so used to him sleeping under my desk that we hit record and he got up and I was like, I forgot he was in here. But yeah, he's usually pretty quiet, so we should be okay.
Absolutely. And he brings joy and happiness into your life. So I'm sure it's a way in which you maintain that level of, a good level of just fulfillment in every day.
I do, yes. In my calendar, when I block my work time in between, I have play with the dogs. Let the dogs out. Play with the dogs.
Fantastic.
So they give me my little breaks during the day.
That's awesome. It's awesome. It's good to have those cues or because sometimes we can just get stuck with our work and sort of just keep pushing through and we become unproductive. Whereas I think you've got this down pat in terms of,
Yeah. If you try to sit, it is funny. People think, well, if I sit here for 4 hours, I'll get so much more done. I'm like, no, you've got about 90 minutes until that productivity button starts to fade. So yeah, gotta get up.
We'll certainly get into that shortly, but I'm really keen for you to share with the listeners and viewers as to how you've arrived at what you're doing today. Please share your backstory.
All right. I'm going to try not to make it rambly because it's a long, adventurous story. But how I got to where I am today. So I've spent the last 15 years in corporate America. And at the same time, I became a doctor of psychology. And so during my corporate career, I knew that I love the psychology side of things. I love, why do people behave the way they behave? Why do they do what they do? And then particularly in a business environment, because it's a very different environment. It's a very different experience and opportunity. And so my corporate career was centered around the human element of business. So employee engagement, employee experience, talent development, talent management. And it gave me that kind of psychology fix, right? I got to, work with people, understand, put programs together, just figure out how it worked in a corporate environment. So that's what I enjoyed. And then I always joke with people, my goal for those 10, 15 years was all about that proverbial ladder. I'm going to climb that ladder. I'm going to get to the top of that ladder. And then the higher I got on the ladder, I was like, I don't think I really like it up here at the top of this ladder. It's too political and bureaucratic and I'm not really able to do what I want to do anymore. And I started to feel like that cliche of a square peg trying to squeeze into a round hole. And so, at that point, it was kind of, what do I do? Because this has been my goal for so long. And it was at, that point that I decided I think I'm just ready to go out on my own and, take everything that I've learned and experienced and implement it in a way that I'm aligned with and, that makes me feel good every day for myself, not for someone else. And so that's the quick version of how I got to where I am today. And so, I love working with other business owners because I've been a business owner. I've been a serial entrepreneur. It's what I enjoy, which is why I think I kind of felt like that square peg in corporate America. But anyway, so that's, how I ended up. I wanted to take what I learned, what I had experienced, and do it in a way that felt good waking up every day instead of feeling like, what am I doing? Yeah.
So in essence, the whole journey was, seeking more fulfillment, wasn't it? It was like you'd started your journey, you were doing what you love doing in terms of implementing psychology in the workplace and really helping the cohesion between teams and helping people understand people and bringing them together, and getting the best out of people, and obviously building culture and all that, which is, all important around the work environment. But then, as you said, as you got up the ladder, it was less of what you love doing and more of the stuff that you thought, do I have time? Do I, really want to waste my energy on this politics? I just love doing that frontline work, and hence you made the decision to, to get back to that frontline work that you love and is more fulfilling to you.
Yes, definitely. Makes me feel happy. Because then, the other thing that I've learned is like now I am making, this is going to sound like hoofy floofy, but I am making a tangible difference in other humans' lives. And that feels good. That feels really good on a selfish level,
Yes.
like that feels good to me. But it's so rewarding, when you wake up in the morning and you're looking forward to what you have coming, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm a firm believer. Life is too short. We only get this one short life, that we are gifted. And I want it to be filled with that, with fulfillment and understanding and joy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's certainly not selfish because you're adding value. As you said, you're having an
Mm.
impact
Mm.
and you really, so it's like, for me, that's certainly a win-win situation because
Yeah.
you're seeing the difference you're making in the other human being, and that's giving you fulfillment, seeing the difference you've made in someone else's life. But at the same time, their life, it's a life-changing experience for the other person
Mm.
in the direction they want to move in. So
Yeah.
it's,
No, you're so
it's
right.
yeah, it's like this beautiful win-win situation. You
Win-win.
get to do what you love, and others get to experience the love that like, I
Hmm.
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Full circle
yeah,
win-win.
yeah, it is. It is. But it's beautiful, and then that then gives you more fulfillment, and then that drives you to get up the next day and do it all again. Who's the next person I'm going to, help and help. You actually, yeah, what you're doing is giving them more fulfillment. It's like
Yeah.
you're filling their bucket at the same time
Filling
filling
their
your bucket.
bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No, it is.
beautiful.
It is true. Yeah. Makes a pretty
So
circle.
let's get into how you help others and serve others in terms of helping them find more fulfillment, more experience, more joy, more life satisfaction. Yeah, so let's get into that side of things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, like I said, I primarily work with business owners, and within that world, can a lot of times be, I'm sure you understand this, right? When you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're a solopreneur, like it can be lonely. You're working in your own head a lot, you're working by yourself a lot. But even outside of that, even entrepreneurs with small teams, it can feel isolating. It's not easy. A lot of stuff is on your shoulders. You're responsible for a lot of things, and it's very enmeshed in your personal life, right? It's hard to separate that a lot of times because your business is so important to you and your personal life is so important to you. So, I work with them. I have discovered, and I've kind of pivoted to a place that feels really good where we focus almost half and half on mindset, your belief systems. What are your limiting beliefs? What are your powerful beliefs? And what is your mindset? What is your why are you doing? What's your purpose? And then it's been amazing to see when we can focus on that first and up front and make so much progress and see so many light bulbs go off. The business results are unbelievable, in a way that it could be in a way that they didn't even set out to see these results. But because they become so whole personally and mentally and emotionally, yeah, it's they'll say to me all the time, like, I just had the biggest month of my whole business. And I'm like, yeah, because look at the new energy you're putting out there. You're attracting that energy back. So that has been one of the most fulfilling parts of working is, when I realized, yeah, I can do the business stuff. I know processes and strategies and, P&Ls and revenue, like all that stuff. But man, where I'm finding my jam is getting them to recognize how much better and joyful and fulfilling life is as a business owner when you can understand your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing and how you communicate that to others. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, you as you said, you just fulfill them with energy, and they just want to do more of what they do.
Mhm.
So what like it's very much like your progression.
Yes.
So, in terms of that why and purpose, like when I've read studies on the blue zones, and the top, in terms of their top 3 pointers, they say they live a purposeful, meaningful life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important for health, well-being, mental health, social connection, is that we feel this sense of meaning and purpose, that we have, this is why I'm here on planet Earth. And so how do you help facilitate that? Like, what are some of the questions you may ask? How do you help bring that out in a person? Because in today's world, where we have this social media bombardment and distractions, we very much not looking within. We're always looking out and comparing ourselves to others and seeing their highlight reels and thinking, I'm living such a boring life. And you're going to be like, this is, yeah. So I'm really keen to really go down this path in terms of how you help business owners and teams find this meaning and purpose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's so true. Comparison syndrome is a real thing. Like, social media has blown that out of the water. But, I think, and it's interesting too, I would say a good portion of the business owners that I'm working with, when we first start working together, they're kind of at a point where they have this business and they don't remember why they started it, right? They're like, I have become so burned out and so overwhelmed and so, entrenched in the business, in the day-to-day, in the just keeping up, putting out fires. Why did I do this? Like, why did I start this business? And so a lot of times the conversation, it's as easy as literally starting there. Let's rewind. Why did you start this business? Why did you think this was a good idea? What prompted you to put all that effort? Because it takes a lot of effort to start a business. What prompted you to put all that effort in? And so a lot of times it's just rewinding, and kind of, I feel like it's like unlayering all the heavy, day-to-day stuff so that you can get back to where you see that little fire burning and what it was burning for. And then you can reignite it. Some of the other questions, I think a big one, and I have found this useful even from other coaches, is, and I'm sure you've heard this, where, you'll ask, they'll be like, well, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't think I have any gifts. And so it's okay, if you can't come up with it, think about what other people close to you have said they think you're really good at. What do people around you come to you for? And I mean, it could be, you make the best margaritas in the world. That's why I come to you. Or, it could be, you really make me feel heard when I'm talking to you. Like, you make me open up like no one else. So there's no limit on what it is. And it's important, just close your mind to any internal critic voice that you might have and just think about, why do other people come to you? Or, another version of that is, if you could think of your ideal day, what would that look like? What would that look like? You get up in the morning and you're looking forward to doing what? So, I mean, there's a million questions. I could go down a total rabbit hole here, but, I think the important thing is asking questions from an external perspective that it's a lot of times hard to ask ourselves. Right. And I think there's one in one of my most important mentors, JJ Ferrari, who, I was telling her, in one of our sessions one time, that when I was going through a really hard time, I read this metaphor that I will never forget. And it was talking about, if you think about a mosaic, right? And you're standing right up on that mosaic, which are like the little, broken pieces of pottery or whatever. And you're standing right on, that's all it looks like, right? It just looks like this mess of broken pottery. And you're like, oh yeah, impressive. But when you stand back and you're looking at that same mosaic, it makes a beautiful picture. And now that you're standing back, you can see the whole thing. And I think that becomes so important when you're trying to figure out, what is my purpose? What is my why? Because if you stay right here and just think about what's in your head and what you're going to get lost. You're not going to be able to pull that out. So it's my job to pull them back enough that we can zero in and say, look, this is why you're here. That was a long answer. Hopefully I answered your question.
And I'm glad you took the time to explain it, because I think once we know our purpose, it's so much easier to maintain a good level of fulfillment. It's like your bucket's a lot higher, when you're on, yeah. And I think without having that, you're sort of directionless and you're thinking, don't like this and not sure about this, and you're sort of a bit lost, and you're sort of then going, along life, just sort of bouncing around and sort of, yeah, I guess that could be part of the journey of finding it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I think sometimes you kind of have to float down the river and get knocked
yeah,
along the rocks,
yeah.
until you're like, whoa, this is my path. But it is.
Mm,
And I mean, I can definitely empathize because I've been there just like anybody, where if you don't if you don't have that vision, if you don't have that why to go back to, what are you doing? And that's how it can kind of feel like, what am I doing? What am I getting up every day for? Like, what am I doing? And that's even when I was in corporate America, which at the end, when I was finally done, I was like, why am I getting up every day to stress out for these people that I'm just a number to? Right? Like, no, this isn't working for me anymore. So yes, you're definitely right. And it's not, I'm not even trying to say at all that it's easy to figure out your purpose. And I'm not even going to say that I know 100% my purpose right now in life. But I think the most important thing, if they get anything today, is just the effort is worth it. If you
yeah.
like, just to feel like you are going on that path instead of getting beat up by all the rocks in the river. Yeah, it's worth the effort to try to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a constant evolution, isn't it? Like, like we go on this path, and but then we pick up and acquire more skills, and we become, or we make, that lead us to other discoveries and other interests,
Mhm.
and yeah. So I actually don't think, like, I think if you look at anyone successful, they've done numerous things along their
Mhm.
journey. It's not like just they've stuck with the one thing. Like, even sporting talent, they have
Mhm.
a career in sport, but then they go finish sport, and then they find something else, right? And
Yeah,
they, yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine spending, and I'm sure people do this and no judgment here, but for me, right, you think about, I mean, I think the one path, staying on one path would be boring. I would get bored. So, right, that's the joy of figuring out all these different paths. Like,
yeah,
you're experiencing life, this one
yes,
life that we get. So, yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
And in order to find that next thing, you have to be curious, and so you have to
Mhm.
go on that. I'm going to try this. I'm going to explore. I'm going to put my head above the water, or I'm going to pop out and just sort of play around a bit, and see whether it resonates with who I am, and gives me more fulfillment. And so, yeah, it's
Mhm.
that constant evolution of self, really, isn't it?
It is. It is. I know. And I think too, just one more point that you just made me think of. So I had a potential client reach out and we were having this conversation. She wasn't sure, like, do I want to buy this business? Do I want to start this business? And we get to, I said, well, tell me, a little bit more about yourself. And she went on to say, well, so I should let you know, like, I'm very risk averse. And I was like, right away, I don't think entrepreneurship is really right for you because if you're going to
Yeah,
explore,
yeah,
be an entrepreneur, figure out who you are, what your purpose is. You have to take risks. It
yeah.
requires risk, risk and reward, but it requires risk. And that one just stuck out because it made me laugh. I was like, oh, yeah, we might want to rethink this career path.
But it's fantastic that she got that insight very quickly from you, as opposed to having a fail and not enjoying herself, and maybe becoming burnt out, and
Yeah.
getting some physical disorder as a result of burning out. Yeah, so it's really nice that you're able to point her in that direction of where
Yeah.
she's better. Yeah, yeah,
If that's one thing, I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah. I
yeah.
don't want anyone to spend unnecessary time on unnecessary things.
Now, the other area that you're an expert in is communication. And one thing is that we can know ourselves, but it's the articulation of self to others so that they know us, and and it really helps with building those relationships, that effective communication. And
Yes.
like, I find today, certainly with my female clients, there's a suppression of voice. They don't think they're worthy enough to speak their needs, or to speak up, or to assert themselves. And as a result, I see the thyroid
Mm,
implicated
mm.
as a result of not articulating their needs. And so, how, once someone finds their purpose, or even if they're still looking for their purpose, how can they better communicate more effectively and express their needs?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to a lot of that repression, and I work with a lot of women and like executive women, and it still amazes me that you have these high powered executive women that still are driven by a fear of being honest about what their challenges are, what their struggles are. And it just amazes me. Or even even not even your struggles, but having a voice to speak up about what you're good at or what you've accomplished, right? I was speaking to a group of executive women the other day, and that was a big theme. They were like, "Well, I just don't feel confident that I can say that, or how do I get it?" And I said, "You know what? We have to learn to own our awesome. That is what we have to do, because we all have some sort of awesome inside of us, and it has to become okay to talk about that." And so I think, to go back to your question, all of the repression and the hesitancy is driven by fear, because we're afraid of what people will think. We're afraid of what it will do to our careers. We're afraid of how it will impact our relationships. And this takes a long time, and it's not easy, but getting to the point where you're valuing you above someone else's reaction that you can't control anyway. And I think that's, if you can get to that point, that makes it so much easier to know internally it's okay to say how you feel. It's okay to say what you think, because you can't control how they're going to react to your message anyway. So be in control of what you can control, which is your message. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I'm thinking it's so important for business owners that want to grow their business is you got to be out there promoting what you do, promoting your strengths, and and there's an element of putting yourself out there, because you are essentially the business, right? Particularly
Yep.
if you're a service business like we are we are the product. So
Yep.
you got to get, yeah, 100%.
Yes. No,
In
very
terms
true.
of helping your clients value themselves, because that's another thing, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and what constantly puts that down is the comparison that we touched on earlier, is that they're thinking they're not as good as this other person, or they don't have what this other person's got it, and they're constantly beating themselves up. How can we move forward from this low self-worth, low self-esteem, and not valuing self?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of what I just said. We have to look this way towards ourselves instead of always looking that way, right? I was literally just coaching a client earlier today, and one of her mindset goals is to celebrate every win. So everything, that happens, because I think that's what we miss so many times, right? Like, you can look on Facebook and be like, "Oh, wow, they're in the Bahamas this week and she looks awesome in that bikini," right? And like, now we're doubting ourselves. But at the same time, yeah, she's in the Bahamas in a bikini, but like, I just changed someone's life over here by, so I think we have to be able to build that muscle of reflecting more internally. Again, what we can control. We can't control the bikini lady in Bahamas, but we can control our results and how we celebrate our wins and what we think is important, right? So, yeah, it's just being able, I think, to build that muscle of self reflection. And I've even had clients literally where I make them sit. I don't make them, but I have them sit with a pen and a piece of paper and literally write out everything that they like about themselves. Everything that they, and I to this day, knock on wood, haven't had anyone with a blank piece of paper yet. So I think there is so much good there that we just forget. We overlook it because we're too busy comparing, or we're too busy working, or we're too busy beating ourselves up about what didn't work, that we forget to celebrate what did work.
And that point of too busy, because when we're too busy, we're constantly doing, and there's no time for reflection, right? Because we're just
Yeah.
moving from one task to the next. And
Yeah.
so, do you encourage your clients, to schedule time where they're just sitting with themselves, reflecting on the day, reflecting on that last meeting, doing what I guess athletes do? They play a game, and then they're constantly replaying that game as to how they could better play it next time in order to
Yep.
improve.
Yep. Yes. So to answer your question, yes, I absolutely do. Even as things like I just said at the beginning of this call, like scheduling literally 10 to 15-minute chunks throughout their day to just get up and sit with themselves. It could be 15 minutes of meditation. It could be 10 minutes of yoga. It could be 10 minutes of snuggling with my dogs. But I think making that a regular routine throughout the day, I personally have found, so much good in that. And then outside of that, one thing that I was finding, so business owners are driven people, right? You have to be driven, especially my female ones. And again, this is not a judgment, it's a compliment. But they are driven, which means that a lot of them, when they get up in the morning, it's get out of bed, work. get out of bed, focus on work, get out of bed, check their phone, right? And so I have made it a habit that now with most of my clients, we have intentionally built in a time between when you get out of bed and when you go to work. That is your time. There's no phone, or there's no email, there's no work. And I don't care if it means taking a long shower, like whatever works for you, but it's taking that time intentionally, because that's the other thing. It's not going to happen on accident. We're too busy. And so you have to intentionally build this time in. And also I tell them, this is intentional time for you. It's not time, to do like, chores or, something else that's going to make you use your brain. It's to really sit and reflect and visualize. I'm big into visualization because I think that's important. If you want to achieve a goal, visualize what that goal looks like. And the more you can do that, the more your subconscious is going to bring that to fruition. So I think visualization is very powerful.
Yeah, because it creates what we, I guess, are seeking. And then we've got this magnetic draw to experiencing that, right? To actually manifesting that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's got that magnetic pull in the morning to get you out of bed and to get you going.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just thinking when you were sharing about those difficult conversations, like, so fearing what the other person will say. So, I want to give this person feedback, constructive, criticism, whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
But, I want to critique them in order for them to get better so that they can, like what you do, and there's probably better wording for it. But in today's world, we're too scared to offend someone, what they might think, how they might judge us, how they might react, all that. And you mentioned you can't control their response.
Mm-hmm.
How can we prepare ourselves to have these conversations so that we're openly speaking, and helping one another through giving them pointers or tips or
No. I love this question. Great question. And I love it because I have an answer. And there are specific strategies and specific structures to having these conversations that make them go 150 times better than if you just wing it. Because, let's be fair, just like you were saying, you can't control their reaction. So you're walking into an unknown situation, which is scary to anyone, right? So I'm going to give you some tactical pieces here that you can take away and your audience can take away. So when you're walking into, let's just take an example of, you're a leader, right? And you have an employee that just hasn't been performing up to par, right? We'll just use that as an example. The first thing that you want to do, and I'll also share that these tactics work in any conversation, by the way. They're beneficial in any, but specifically in these, they're very key beneficial. But so when you're first going into this conversation, the first thing that you want to start with is the why of why you're having this conversation. Okay. And I'll give you an example of why that makes a difference. So let's say that I bring Billy in because his sales have gone down, right? And I really need him to bring his sales up. So Billy comes in and I'm like, hey, Billy, over the last few months, I've noticed that your sales numbers have really dipped and I need you to get those back up. Okay. Billy's like, whoa, I didn't know what we were talking about. And you just caught me off guard. And now I'm defensive because you're attacking my work. However, if we try that conversation again, and it sounds like, hey, Billy, I wanted to bring you in here today because I value you highly as a member of our team. And your results have typically been high. I use you as an example for other employees, new ones that come in. So because I value you as your leader, I want to talk about the dip that I've seen in the last couple months. And I want to figure it out together. So if there's something that I can help you with, that's why I'm having this conversation with you. I want us to figure it out together. That's a very different conversation, right? So now Billy knows why we're having the conversation. He knows that he's cared about. He knows he's supported. And I'm actually going to get feedback from him now on why his numbers have dipped. Whereas before, all he's thinking is, get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. So I'm going to get nothing from him, right? So hopefully that made sense, that example.
Totally.
So starting with the why is one of the most important things. The other thing from a basic human instinct perspective is that even you and I, as humans, when we're trying to make a decision or respond to something, our first instinct is to figure out what's in it for me. And I'm sure this isn't new to you, right? They call it WIFM, if you've heard that. So what's in it for me? So again, when we're having these conversations, because they can tend to be maybe difficult and you don't know what the reaction is, You want to tell them why you're having the conversation, and then you want to share with them why is it important for them to even listen or take, what you're saying. So like in the Billy situation, right? It's this is why we're having the conversation, because I value you as an employee. I've noticed that your numbers, are dipping, and I know that one of your career goals is to move into the director role. So I want to make sure I'm helping you get there by understanding how we can bring your numbers back up. Right. So now he knows this isn't just an asinine conversation about my numbers dipping. My leader knows that I want to move up. So this is going to help me to be able to reach my goal. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay.
I was picturing the Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you were sharing that, because when you started, you're saying, I value you as an employee. Straight away, the employee is thinking, okay, I'm safe and secure. Okay, I'm willing to listen further. And then you're taking them up that pyramid.
I love it. I love that you recognize that. Yeah. And it seems so, but these are things like for us, like if you study psychology and to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. But every day, you just don't think of it. You don't know what you don't know, right? You're just thinking, most leaders, oh my gosh, I have to give Billy feedback on his performance. He's going to hate me. What if he gets mad? So they're stressing themselves out before even having these conversations. They're not sleeping the night before. They have butterflies in their stomach. Whereas if you know these tools, you've just taken all the pressure off your shoulders, because really the onus is on Billy to share with you why his numbers are dipping. All you're there to do is say, I care about you. Your numbers are dipping. Why? You see the difference? Like now I'm not under pressure. I can sleep like a baby the night before because now I just need Billy to tell me what's going on. It makes a big difference on both sides.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You've created that win-win scenario.
It's a theme. Yeah. I like the win-win theme. Yeah, no, that's very true. Hopefully that was
yeah, because the manager's coming from, representing the company and wanting the best for the company, and thinking as an organization, we can succeed if I help you succeed. And then Billy's needs are looked after in a sense that he can now thinking, oh, you're giving me support in order for me to hit my end goal, which is, to climb the corporate ladder. And so Billy walks away thinking, oh, thank you so much for that feedback.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the most thing people talk about culture, and employees and what is our culture? What is morale? It's not complicated. Humans want to be safe. They want to feel valued. They want to know that they're heard. They want to be seen. If you can just figure that out as a leader, the other pieces will come. And then you're creating this environment where people do feel, this is a safe space. I can give my opinion on this. That's okay. Wow. My boss really just listened to my idea. That was amazing. So it's not hard. The connection, the trust, the being seen and heard. If we could just, figure out these foundational concepts, we would revolutionize the workplace.
Well, absolutely. Because I'm thinking like with today's world, with this unlimited 24-hour news cycle, right? It's constantly bombarded with negativity. Like, the war's happening here, someone got murdered here, all this stuff, right? And and it's constantly putting us in this fear state, thinking, I don't feel secure. And, so then we go into every conversation a bit insecure, a bit fearful, because, we're bombarded with it all around us and people talking about, these news events and stuff like that. And so straight away, like in order to allow that conversation to build openness and trust, we got to let the other person know that they're safe and secure with me, in this conversation, that I'm no threat to them. It's like,
it's very true. It's very true. And that's why I think even, with any, that's why I said those can work in any conversation, but especially, the conversations where you need the other person to know, like, you're safe. I'm here because I care. I want to support you and this is a safe space. So it's important.
And it's probably why these sort of more transactional conversations aren't that effective, because you're just questioning that other person all the time. What's their underlying motive? Are they trying to scam me? Because you're in this fear, and you really got to start that conversation from that, back to the basics, isn't it? Is what you're sharing. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. That's what I mean.
It's
We make it so complicated and it's
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Just talk human to human.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I think even if you go into corporate America and you remove the hierarchy, they're all humans.
Hmm.
We're all people, right? There's no reason why Billy shouldn't be able to talk to me or that I can't go and talk to Billy, right? We're all humans. And I love your point of, because we are bombarded so much by the negativity in the world that it does almost become scary to have conversations. And I think just like you mentioned with your clients and with mine, I think that's why they feel so repressed is just, it's that fear. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bummer.
Yeah. It's such a been a really insightful conversation. So really
Yeah.
thank you for sharing how people can better understand themselves and better interact with the world in order to create more fulfillment in their life and experience more joy and happiness every day through you know I guess doing what they love doing and being able to interact and help get the best out of others so that if you help others get what they want, I'll inadvertently get what I want, and we could all
Yeah.
grow together and thrive. So how can the listeners and viewers best connect with you, Amber?
Great question. So LinkedIn is really easy to find me. If you put in Dr. Amber Bartlett, you'll find me. I'm the only one, I think, so far, last time I checked. Or you can also go directly to my website, which is strength-point.com. Those are probably the two easiest.
Fantastic. I'll share both of those links in the show notes so the viewers and listeners can go directly to the show notes and click on those links and connect with you. Thank you once again for coming on the Joyful Mate podcast.
Of course. This was a very joyful conversation and fun. So thank you.
And I loved it that you brought your companion with you in the conversation.
I invited him exactly, but yeah, he was welcome. I have 5, so they're always one's around always.
I could imagine it, and they probably learn something new every time, right?
Hang out for different conversations. I have very
Yes,
wise dogs. Yes.
love it, love it.
Yeah.
So, thank you once again, Dr. Amber Bartlett.
Thank you.